Hi guys, welcome back to Winging It. Make sure to like and subscribe to my channel as I put up new videos pretty frequently. Today I'm going to show you how to make handmade wood signs. So the first step that I do is I pick out a font and everything that I like. I cut it out on my Cricut machine and I am using Stencil Vinyl. This is one of the first times I've used this Stencil Vinyl. It actually worked pretty well. I'm pretty impressed with it. So I take it off and then I go through the whole weeding process to make sure that I pull out all the pieces that I don't really want. So I'll show you how to do that here. Okay, so then I am just finishing up my weeding, and after that is all done, I make sure that I don't have any bubbles or nothing's been misplaced or anything like that. I want to make sure that nothing's popping up where it's not supposed to, and you can see there's a little bubble on the bottom of that G. So I just take my brayer if I have any of those issues, and generally that fixes everything if I just roll it over the top there. So then I cut it out, and I try to use or utilize as little vinyl as possible. So I always try to make sure that I am squeezing everything I can onto the one piece that I'm using. And then I go ahead and use my transfer tape, and I learned a trick with the transfer tape. A lot of people say like put it on a towel or stick it to a towel first so it's not so sticky. I just used my leggings that I was wearing so that it wouldn't be quite so sticky. So then I use my brayer, and from the middle going outwards, I put a decent amount of pressure on there, and I go over everything to make sure everything sticks exactly where it's supposed to. And I always do this on the front, and then I also do it on the back, which I believe I learned from Jennifer Maker, if I remember correctly. And it has actually really helped transferring stencils tremendously. So thank you, Jennifer Maker, for teaching me that trick. So I go ahead and do the same thing on the back there. And then I take off that backing, which is hard because I have like no nails. So sometimes it's hard to kind of try and get it started. And then I start peeling that backing off very slowly, and what I tried to do there was put pressure on my hand while pulling it off, and for some reason that paper just didn't want to do it, so I had to pull it a little bit differently than I usually do. But I just make sure that I go really slow so nothing sticks to it, because if you get something that sticks to the backing, it's kind of a pain in the butt to take it off of the backing and then make sure it sticks on the right spot. And then you can see here that my daughter found out that the iPad was recording and she had to get in there. All right, and the board that I'm using today is actually a cabinet door that I found in my dad's shop that I decided to hijack. He had a bunch of them laying around, and I kind of ended up taking, I asked him, I was like, do you have a project for these? And he was like, no, they're just scrap. So I took a huge stack of them, and I've made a ton of signs out of them. They're gorgeous. And the stain that I used on it, I'll link down below as well. It's actually Varathane. It's like a charred stain that's supposed to make the wood look a little bit burnt, and it is beautiful on literally everything I've used it on. I use it for most of my stains. So that's what I used on here. And then I try to line up my stencil as best I can. I eyeball most of my placements. I haven't found a great way to get everything like, dead straight on there quite yet. So if you have any tips and tricks, feel free to comment below. I am definitely open to learning new techniques here. And eyeballing usually is good for me about 98% of the time. But there's always room for error when you're just using your eyeballs. So I use my brayer to straighten or to smush everything down, basically make sure everything sticks really well. And then I did have to use my scraper there towards the edge. And then this is also a great point to go nice and slow, make sure nothing, sticks to the transfer tape at all. And this is where sticking the transfer tape to like your pants or a towel before you actually use it comes in really great handy. So, because nothing, it sticks as much as it needs to, but it doesn't try to peel anything up. So then I put my arrow on, and this is where eyeballing, this is one of the 2% where my eyeballs didn't work perfect for me. So I noticed later on that it's just a little bit crooked, which isn't the biggest deal because this is not for a customer, it's for myself. So I'm not crazy worried about it. And then I take my brayer and go over everything one more time to make sure everything is really, really stuck down. I use matte Mod Podge, and I believe that I learned this from Jennifer Maker as well. She's got some great tips. But if I use this first on my stencils, it really prevents any kind of bleeding. It gives you just like the barrier that you need so that the paint can't bleed underneath that stencil. You know, if you're using a thinner paint or if your stencil just doesn't feel like sticking as well. It's been fantastic for me. And I have noticed that when I brush all of it on, I've tried to like dab it before too, but that creates a lot of bubbles that you can see even under the paint. So it's best to brush everything on, or if you do have to dab in a couple spots, just make sure you brush it over afterwards so that you don't have those bubbles. And then I use my blow dryer if I'm in a hurry because I'm very impatient to dry everything to, you know, the best that I can. And then once my Mod Podge is pretty much all dry, it's not tacky or anything, I just use white acrylic craft paint. It's worked the best for me and gives a really nice kind of rusticy finish. So I paint that on, and I do 2 coats of the white acrylic paint that I use. Again, I am totally open to suggestions if you guys have found a paint that works really well for you. This is you know, just the one that I found that works kind of well for what I'm doing, but I always love to learn new tips and tricks. So I go ahead and paint everything, and like I said, I do 2 coats on everything. Okay, so this is also a very important step that I have learned kind of the hard way. I like to peel my stencil when my paint is still at least like as wet as it can be, basically, because it actually gives you a really, really clean edge, as opposed to if you let it dry, then sometimes it cracks along the edge where you try to pull it off. So I pull it off when it's nice and wet, and I did use my my little rotary tool just very lightly, so it just cut the stencil so that I wouldn't have so much to pull off. And then I forgot my scissors. I always have scissors on hand because when you peel a little bit more off, it sometimes gets a little bit messy, and so I like to be able to control it with a pair of scissors and pull off little bits at a time. That's what I found works best for me so that I don't create a big old mess when I'm doing this. All right, so that is the finished wood sign. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to comment below. And again, if you have any suggestions as well, I'm always open to suggestions and learning new tips and tricks on how to do fun things like this. So thank you again. Please remember to like and subscribe to my channel. I try to get new videos out as much as a full-time working mother of a 3-year-old can. So yeah, thank you guys again.